By the way, guard dogs are very much allowed in Islam. In fact, I know one marja at least who has guard dogs in his home. And he feeds them, and he goes out with them every day, and they run around him and so forth. Contrary to what most people think of dogs in Islam. And so Safi is sitting down feeding this guard dog. The Imam notices, he hides in order to observe what Safi is doing. Safi eats 1/2 of the loaf of bread and he gives the other half. In other words, an equal share to the dog. The Imam then enters. As he enters, he stands before Safi and he says this, Ya Safi, O Safi, forgive me for standing in your farm without your permission. Safi freaks out. He gets up, he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, Sayyidi, O my master, I didn't see you, I didn't notice you. The Imam said to him, what were you doing? He said, well, I was sitting down and I saw this dog. And I thought to myself, I'm a slave and I am entrusted with guarding this garden. But so is this dog. And so he has as much of a right to eat as I do. So I felt shameful. Listen to the words. فَخَجِلْتُ مِنَ الْكَلْبِ. I felt ashamed of this dog, where I'd be sitting down eating while he's hungry looking at me. So I decided to give him 1/2 of the loaf. The Imam said to him, if that is the case, and if that is the kind of compassion that you're showing to a creature of God, then I free you, you are no longer a slave, and I will give you 2,000 dirhams as a reward, 2,000 silver coins, which was enough to cover your expenses for 2 years. So it's like saying, I'll give you 200,000 pounds or 100,000 pounds. The Imam, Safi looked at the Imam, he said to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, if that is the case and you wish to free me as a slave, I don't wish to leave. I want to stay here and serve you. So the Imam said to him, no, you didn't understand me. First of all, he said, I wish to stay and take care of this garden of yours. The Imam said to him, you didn't understand me. I said this is your garden. All I ask from you is that you forgive me for being in this garden without your permission. Because I already gave you the garden. And I have given you your freedom. And I have given you the 2,000 dirhams. But I have one tiny little request. And that is that because I'm here with my companions, because I'm here with my friends, I would like you to please do me a favor by offering them some fruits that you picked from the trees of this garden. Now, up to this point, had it been anybody else, and if you felt really generous on that day and decided to give away all these things, who would then ask a favor from this newly freed slave who has been given the garden and the money to come and take care of these companions? If it were me, I'd say, well, you know what? Now let's celebrate. Go get the food, go get the kebabs, go get this, go get that. The Imam says to him, would you please do me a favor? Get us some of those fruits, not for me, but for the companions, because they came all the way here. You see Imam al-Hussein's active generosity because of a dog. And you wonder where that came from. But it's very clear where it came from. Because once the love that you have towards God is so strong, so powerful, it has to penetrate through the entire sphere of creation. It has to come down all the way to the smallest and most insignificant creatures of that God. Why? For no reason but the fact that they belong to Him. No reason but the fact that they are creatures and creations of Him. And so that gets me to the topic of tonight. Very briefly, they say that to be in the company of the elderly, to try and comfort them, to speak with them, is a very selfless act. Why? No offense to the elderly, but because there's nothing in it for you. Right? People want to hang out with their friends because they enjoy being in the company of their friends. But when you're with an elderly man or woman, and mind you, I have in the past been to nursing homes for no other reason but just to sit down and talk to the elderly there. it's a very satisfying experience because you feel like you're doing something, you're giving something back to someone who's now at the age of 80, 85, 90. One elderly lady, I remember sitting down and talking to her, was 92 years old. She wasn't a Muslim, by the way. And it just felt that the comfort that you were giving her, because she kept saying that I have a son that I haven't seen for the last 2 years, which is a tragic, tragic thing that you see. It's a pattern that you see across the Western world especially. Also increasingly in the Eastern world, but especially in the West, where these people are really just abandoned because they're too much trouble for their kids. And what happens is you find a vicious cycle taking shape. And we have so many ahadith as well, brothers and sisters, talking about how the way that you treat your parents will be reciprocated by your kids. It's a vicious cycle. Whichever way you treat them, you'll be treated by your own children. And so on and so forth, and it goes down generation after generation. So if you show that mercy, that compassion, that companionship, sometimes all it takes is companionship. And I remember going to visit my grandfather who passed away last year. May Allah bless his soul as well as the souls of all your dearly departed ones. And I remember wondering, okay, what am I supposed to do here? I'm sitting down, he has trouble hearing, a wonderful, kind-hearted man who's seen the world, he's got so many stories. Sometimes all it takes is for you to ask him one question and they have loads of stories to tell you. All it takes is listening to them. And then when they'd run out of stories themselves, I would tell them stories, random stories. We went even to the stage where we'd look up odd news on yahoo.com. You know, the man who bit the dog kind of stories. And just because it's interesting and it's different. And I'd actually make a point in looking up the odd news so that I would then convey it to them. Because that's all it takes. And the hadith says, لَيْسَ مِنَّا مَنْ لَمْ يَرْحَمْ صِغَارَنَا وَلَمْ يُوَقِّرْ كِبَارَنَا. To glorify them, to honor them, to show them extra respect. These are people who at the end of the day have been through life and they've seen things and they've experienced things that we are yet to experience. There's so much to learn from them. But all it takes, as I said, is to cherish them. When we have examples in the lives of the Ahlul Bayt where they would cherish a dog, where they would cherish, there's a hadith in fact that says that there would be two people on the Day of Judgment. A wicked woman, a wicked meaning a sinful woman, a prostitute. A wicked woman would go to heaven because one day as she's walking in the desert, she encounters a thirsty dog. The hadith says she tore up a part of her dress, she lowered it into a well to soak it with water, to make it wet. She'd then bring up that part of her dress, that cloth, and then squeeze the water into the mouth of the dog. God's a prostitute. God says she will go to heaven because of the thirst of the dog that she quenched. And the hadith says, and another woman would go to hell. Perhaps the reason they're both women is because they're actual stories. Now, we're not trying to stereotype anything here. The hadith says, yet another woman, the Prophet says, will end up in the fires of hell because she kept a cat in her home without feeding the cat until the cat died out of hunger. Now, when animals become cherished to this point, when insects, I don't know if you knew this, but in Islam, there are rights for insects. If you have silkworms and you do not feed them, according to the scholars of Islam, the political or religious authority, Hakim al-Shar', has the right to confiscate your property, sell it, and provide food in the form of leaves for silkworms. If this is the kind of religion that we subscribe to, imagine when it comes to the elders of the community. Imagine when it comes to people who are now frail, weak, distanced. People don't want to hang out with them because they're no fun anymore. These are the people that Islam cherishes the most. And these are the people that we are required to offer our respect and our honor and everything we can for their sake. As I said, this is something that I